All right, now this week, time to get into the ideal cleric and finish off the party. So just like the wizard, he's probably not going to necessarily be a melee type of fighter or a melee type of character. Now, clerics are proficient in like light and medium armor and shields, except for tower shields. And think of like the typical dwarf with a cleric, like a shield and warhammer, and probably like a chainmail and stuff. So they can be like in a sense like a third type of like a melee character. So now, as of the recording of this video, I've been playing like a myself a dwarven cleric called Tordek, and so the way he is, he's got like a 16 strength, like a 10 dex, a 16 like a constitution, 16 wisdom, like a 8 intelligence, and like a 10 charisma. So that's like a you could see like a decent ability score for the cleric, in the sense that he's now being able like a tertiary melee fighter if things really if really hit the fan and everything, you needed that extra and because with him being proficient in armor and weapons and stuff, he could get into there and start bashing away if he really needed to. But that's like a shit hits the fan type of scenario. Now, with my character that I've been playing, he has we started off at all three, and we've been going through one of the Candlekeep Mysteries adventures, and kind of like we're a new group, and so there's several new players, and so it's kind of get them interested in so far they're loving it, and so it's always great to see like new players come in and enjoy the game and everything. So now I'm a 30 plus year on and off again players, first introduced way back in like the early 90s with the second edition. So I've never played a cleric before, so this is kind of like a good fun kind of like off center type of character that I usually play. So now, with the clerics being primarily healers, like said with the wizard, they're going to be primarily offensive based. Now I'm focusing the cleric as pretty much defensive based. So they have, instead of like schools of magic like the wizard, like evocation, conjuration, and like illusions and stuff like that, they have what are known as domains, because wizards and like sorcerers and bards, and they're arcane casters, so they draw upon like arcane magic energy. Clerics and druids and paladins, they draw upon divine magic, basically magic from gods and everything. So my dwarven cleric Tordek is his god is the Tyr, the god of justice, and in of course the player's handbook or like the Forgotten Realms, he's like a deity of justice and everything. But he's also like a tempest cleric, and so he has like the tempest domain. But the two domains that I would primarily focus on with a cleric would probably be healing and protection. Healing because they're a cleric and that's what they do. They're supposed to heal, being able to cure wounds and the actual words that kind of escaped me, but cure mild wounds, severe wounds, like moderate wounds or whatever. So you get so many dice that you roll per cure spell that you can it's like for instance the basic cure wounds might do 2d4 plus 2 points of damage recovered and everything, so when you cast it and everything. And so that's why I'm going with the healing domain, so that way they can cast healing spells, and so that way they can call upon whatever deity they follow. Like of course my character Tordek can call upon Tyr and cast his healing spells. Now protection spells, it kind of goes hand in hand with healing, because you can cast spells to raise the AC or something. I'll use the wizard spell mage armor. They can cast it on themselves or anyone else, and their AC goes up by +4 and everything. So that's a good defensive spell for the wizard. So kind of keep that in mind with the protection domain for clerics. So they're casting spells to kind of protect the party. So they could cast maybe a barrier spell that creates a force field around them that can take you cast it maybe 2d 10 points of damage that it can take, and an orc attacks and you roll a 2d10, you get say a 15, so they can sit there and take 15 points of damage before, and then that breaks down. Now they have to attack the PC's, get through the PC's actual AC and everything. So that's where like the protection domain comes into play. So they're casting spells to kind of like create, and of course they could also create barriers for like any type of elemental damage, or like a resistance to like specific types of damage. Like for instance, if you know you're going into like a desert and you're going to be facing like the big bad evil guy is like a blue dragon, and you're getting into his lair, you could get in a sense like spells that give you resistance to lightning, because that's the blue dragon's primary breath weapon is the lightning. So you get spells that can give you resistance damage to a specific type of damage. In this example, lightning. And of course, like I said, the healing domain. Now, if you do take any damage, they can start casting healing spells to be able to heal the party. Now, the same kind of concept with scrolls comes into play as well. So like you can sit there and have them like write up scrolls and stuff for their divine spells, so that way they have extra healing spells and everything. Of course, now we can expand upon that and like get into like potions and stuff. I didn't touch upon potions with the wizard, because the wizard could create like potions that kind of like that can mimic spell effects and everything. But like I think the most famous type of potion is the potion of healing. You'll see this in just pretty much most, if not any, iteration of not only TTRPG but board games. So like for instance, like Hero Quest, the most common potion that you get is a potion of healing, and like they have like a 6-sided dice that you roll, and the potion of healing will you can either have it heal 1 to 6 points of heal 1 to 6 points of damage, or what it usually does is like you drink that and you chug it, you get 4 body points, or what's Hero Quest's version of hit points restored. So now we get to see like even more of the magical items come into play, where or at least I'm touching upon with them, talking about how clerics can create potions. So they may create like I said, the potions of healing, which would in a sense increase their healing abilities in their repertoire. So like they can sit there maybe pre-adventure, like they use getting back to the blue dragon, going into like, okay, well, we know we're going into the big bad evil guy. Like, it's the blue dragon. His lair's over here. Your melee characters like the paladin and the barbarian start preparing themselves with their weapons and stuff. The rogue and ranger might get them their weapons and their non-magical stuff or whatever ready. Now with the wizard and the cleric, they start getting themselves prepared. So like the wizard starts writing up a bunch of scrolls. Maybe the cleric is sitting there creating a bunch of healing potions that he distributes to the party. So they can sit there and he doesn't necessarily have to concentrate on healing. He can concentrate on his protection domain. So he passes out say 20 healing spells primarily to your combat characters, so they can sit there and instead of having hey cleric, I need to heal, they can just pull out their healing potion, chug it, and then get back into action. So that way it frees up the cleric to cast maybe a protection spell. So the wizard's mage armor spell that I use as an example, he could cast something equivalent to that to help raise their AC, or maybe he can cast their spells to increase their resistance damage to lightning. And of course, in non-combat encounters, where the cleric would shine would be going into the sanctuaries of their churches or whatever. So they can my character Tordek can go into a church and pretty much call upon them for a simple healing spells and stuff like that. And in my character description is okay, I can have them help me live a modest lifestyle or whatever, and using that whole table in the DM guide. So of course I can call upon services and stuff from my church and stuff. So for instance, if we get back from our adventure and we're successful, we're kind of banged up and I'm out of spells, I can bring them into my church and oh hey look, I can go to the priest and hey look, I might be buddies with them, hey look, we helped this orphanage, and we need help. We now need help because we just helped this orphanage fight off orc bandits or something, and we're all banged up and everything. And so like role play like that, kind of like that helped out the party. So the cleric can help out the party in non-combat situations by getting to like not only his local church, but he could possibly coordinate with other churches, especially if they're good aligned. And like, oh hey, look, let's start role playing in like we, for instance, in Forgotten Realms, we go into Waterdeep. I can come up to like the aristocrats and be like, hey, look, I'm part of this church. We need some funding because we're trying to like help out that orphanage I mentioned, or like we're trying to help out like rebuild like the this not necessarily rival school, but like our allies school or church or whatever. You can get into them into role playing to get the aristocrats involved and kind of like help out like in the local urban settings and everything. So that's a way like another way that the cleric can shine in non-combat situations, kind of like be that the good old like goody two shoes type of hero. And so now with ending this series, we have like you're pretty much like your ideal party, and each character ends up shining in their own way, whether it's the barbarian, the paladin, the ranger, the rogue, the wizard, and now the cleric. And so the reason why I went with 6 is so that way you have like a much more expanded party instead of your traditional fighter, rogue, wizard, and cleric and everything. But of course, I'll end this by reiterating: you can substitute if you really want to different classes for the ones that I've gone over here. So like you could go with the traditional fighter instead of the barbarian, or you could go with the monk instead of the paladin. You could go with maybe the monk, or like of course you could do the barbarian again, or like another type of like a melee type of character, or you could do kind of like the ranger if you want to do kind of like a Dristuarn type of character. And like instead of like the ranger, you could quite possibly do like like switching like the rogue, or like maybe the warlock instead, and and instead of like the rogue, you could quite possibly do the bard. Wizard, you could do like the sorcerer or another warlock. The cleric, you could switch out for the druid. So it all depends on you and your group that you're playing with. But for the ideal group, I went with like as you can see in these videos: barbarian, paladin, the ranger, the rogue, the wizard, and now the cleric. And so with this ideal party, you would probably be good covered in not only every single combat situation, but also in any non-combat situation as well.